Let's bring in CTV's political commentator Scott Reid now with more. Good morning to you, Scott.
Good morning.
All right, so you've had some time to mull it over, which is, I'm sure, how you spent your last night. Give us your thoughts today on Prime Minister Carney's cabinet choices. What is he trying to signal?
Well, I think there's a whole pile of things. So there's a bunch of busy work that you have to do. You have to make certain that you've got gender and regional representation and so on and so forth. But I think what he was really trying to signal was that he intends to move swiftly, and he wants people in key positions that will help him do that. So we just saw right there in that clip, he's talking with Vashi about Canada-U.S. relations. So he keeps some people that have been in place working on that relationship so that he can try to move the yardsticks. But then you think about things like energy infrastructure. He's brought in newcomers like Tim Hodgson out of Markham, who's had experience at Hydro One and getting big infrastructure projects built, and doing so with the consensus of communities and stakeholders. So I think that he is going to be saying to this cabinet, it's work time. And that starts this morning when they're meeting. And I think he's going to be a results-oriented PM. I think he's going to be a results-oriented boss. Those cabinet ministers are going to be hearing from the boss frequently and asking for updates, and they'll want to show progress.
Was anyone left out that you thought may be in cabinet, Scott?
You know, there's some familiar faces that got left out, but the one that surprised me, and I'm glad you asked, was Carlos Leto out of Quebec City. He's a former Quebec finance minister under Philippe Couillard. He's someone who worked at the Bank of Canada and sat on the board of the Bank of Canada, someone with whom Mark Carney had worked a lot and appeared to recruit. If you asked me, I would have bet you a large amount of money that he was going to be in a senior economic portfolio. So I was curious about his absence. And then there's some other familiar faces that got dropped. People that got appointed in March, and you thought, well, surely they're going to be a lock for cabinet afterward. And you know, a number of those faces weren't out there.
And to your earlier point about some familiar faces who were briefed or very much involved in the U.S. trade file, I'm thinking of Melanie Joly. She was swapped out. She's now industry minister. Anita Anand is the new foreign affairs minister. What do you make of that move?
Not a huge amount, to be honest with you. Julie had been in foreign affairs for a while. I think ISED, as they call it, which is essentially the industry portfolio, think about working with large corporations and commercial interests. That's a good fit for Melanie Joly in Montreal. You think about the potential impacts, aerospace, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, all of those things are all those industries are feeling very anxious given Trump's aggression. So it makes sense to keep her on that file, allows her to maintain continuity on the Canada-U.S. relationship. And Anita Anand did defense. She's been part of the international circuit, so to speak, and brings that expertise to foreign affairs. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And you know what? They're both two competent ministers, and you want competent people in those big, large, consequential portfolios.
All right, but we just see the Prime Minister arriving for the start of cabinet meeting. He did not talk to reporters. I want to ask you one last quick question. For those critics who are saying this is actually bigger, this group, than what Trudeau even had. There are ministers, there are secretaries of state. Can you describe what the distinction is between these two groups? And, you know, what do you say to those people that say there's a lot of people now, maybe more than what we need?
Yeah. Well, it's a reasonable criticism because there was a lot of spin prior to the cabinet's unveiling saying, oh, this is going to be really small and focused, and it really wasn't that small. That being said, ministers of state, secretaries of state, as they're sometimes called, they're not ministers. They're not full ministers. They will not sit in cabinet. They will not be there today. You don't have an independent department. You don't have a full complement of staff. So they're not even really junior ministers. They are people who are designated with a file, with an issue. So you're going to be responsible for sport. You don't get your whole own individual department. But when sport comes up, we'll call you to the cabinet table and make certain that you're trying to get something done in that department. And, you know, in my experience, when we had the secretaries of state under Mr. Martin and Mr. Chrétien, it was a great breeding ground. You got to figure out who was a gamer. You threw one of these jobs to someone, and if they showed a lot of promise, so they're able to whip public service and stakeholders into shape and get things done, well, then you brought them to the full cabinet table. And if they didn't, sayonara.
Scott Reid for us. Scott, thanks so much. Good to see you this morning. And again, as we keep an eye on Ottawa, we are waiting for the Prime Minister's newly sworn cabinet to arrive for their first formal meeting. If any of them speak to reporters, we'll take you there live.